Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Governor Herbert, it's an honor to be here with you today. This is a very impressive group and a very impressive gathering, and focusing on an issue that is critical to our state, critical to our nation, and is one of Governor Herbert's priorities. Those of you that are in the state, that follow this at all, know that one of the four cornerstones that the governor has based his entire administration on is energy and energy development. And so he regrets not being able to be here with you this morning. I know he had a chance to be with some of you last night, and he sends his regards. I'm excited to be here. Tammy has invited me every year, and every year I've had a conflict and not been able to make it. Now that I'm the lieutenant governor this year, Tammy, I didn't have an excuse, and I'm very grateful that I didn't have an excuse because, again, this is critically important. Although I'm probably going to make a huge mistake. Fortunately, I don't think I have any of my staff here today, but I had a presentation with the usual talking points, and I'm sure you all probably need a little mid-morning nap, and I should have stuck with those talking points, but we're going to shoot from the hip here for the next few minutes, and that's always dangerous, but I want to tell you just what I think. And not having, being born and raised and still living in rural Utah, sometimes we don't have that filter between our brains and our mouths, and things just come out. So let me apologize in advance for offending any of you, and probably all of you. But I just want to share again some thoughts that I've had as I was reflecting on the beautiful drive out here last night and this morning. A couple weeks ago, I was asked to give a speech on government regulations, and I came across an interesting instance in the history of our country. Not long ago, we faced a crisis, especially in the big cities in this country. That crisis had to do with transportation, where we faced major gridlock, we faced environmental disasters, and rising insurance costs. In fact, this transportation problem became so grim that there was a summit held in New York City, a world summit, where leaders from major cities across the globe came to work on this transportation crisis. Now, you would assume that I am referring to the automobile, and all of those things would surely apply. But this happened around the turn of the century, although it was the last turn of the century, around 1900. And the problems that we were talking about were horses. Horses were the main mode of transportation. In New York City alone, there were over 200,000 horses that were being used every day. Those of you that own horses and spend time around horses know what 200,000 horses might look like. It was incredible. In fact, you were twice as likely to die in an horse pedestrian accident in 1900 than you are today to die of an auto pedestrian accident in New York City. The waste that was produced by these animals was almost immeasurable. On corner lots, the piles of manure were stacked over 60 feet high. The environmental impacts of that were just astounding. The rodents that were attracted to that, when rain would come, the runoff that would occur off those piles of manure were just out of control. And the 10-day global conference to solve the problem adjourned after 3 days when it was clear that no solutions could be found. Now, this really critical problem in our nation was solved almost overnight, and you'll be surprised to know that it wasn't solved by government regulation or overreach, but it was actually solved by innovation. It was solved by technology. It was solved by the invention of the electric streetcar and the internal combustion engine and the car as we know it today. I'm a rational optimist when it comes to the problems that we face in our country, and I truly believe that human innovation and technology can solve most of our problems. If you believe that the future of our country and the future of our globe depends on the innovation of new energy sources and this idea of renewable energy. You're damned right it does. That's exactly where we're headed. We need to get there, and I firmly believe that someday we will. If you believe that we will get there by destroying traditional energy sources, if you believe that we will get there by government overreach and regulation, by government picking winners and losers, you're damned wrong. It's not going to happen. That's not the way we're going to bridge that gap. It's going to be bridged the way it's being bridged today, from presentations that you've heard already, presentations that you'll continue to hear on innovation and technology with existing sources that lead us and bridge us to that day when we'll be able to have cheap, renewable energy sources. Now, there's something, if I can, even more insidious at play than just these environmental issues that we're talking about. It's not often that as a lieutenant governor I talk about global security and national security, but I think it's more imperative today than ever. I believe that it is reprehensible. I believe that it is illogical. And I believe it is borderline criminal that we continue to send our young men and young women to die on the sands of the Middle East when we have the technology and the ability for the first time in the history of our nation to be completely energy independent in a very environmentally friendly way. Unfortunately, we have a president who recently admitted that he has no strategy. I would like him to know that Governor Herbert and the state of Utah has a strategy. It's called a 10-year energy plan. We're happy to share it with him. We haven't copyrighted it. We'll actually let him take credit for it because we know that's important. When you look at what is happening globally, and let's forget about the Middle East for just a second. Let's talk about Russia. And what is happening with Russia. If you look at this, if you spend 5 minutes with it, it's easy to see why Russia has again become so powerful, especially when it comes to Europe. It's energy. European nations are completely dependent upon Russia for their energy sources. And unless and until we change that, Russia will continue to be, at best, a thorn in the side of the world, and at worst, an enemy to mankind. Now, If we had a president that could understand that, and again, could understand the innovation that is taking place right here in the state of Utah, that is happening with energy development, this ability for us to become energy independent in a cleaner way than we have ever been, we could actually change the course of history, and we could change the geopolitical balance of power. I'm not sure that that's ever going to happen with this president. In fact, Mr. President, the 1970s called, and they would like their foreign policy and energy policy back. We live in a world where we have the ability to improve, and we're not doing it, and that's on us. Now, when we look at energy, I have to take a minute to talk about public lands. I noticed that Rob Bishop is going to be here later, and so I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about his initiative. I'll spend a little bit of time on that. But as I've had the opportunity to travel around the state of Utah over this last year and throughout my life, and then to travel the country and visit other states and talk with other leaders, I am constantly reminded of how incredibly blessed we are to live in this place. It's really unbelievable. As you hike these canyons, these mountains, you see these arches, you look at our rivers, our wildlands. We have been as blessed as any other state in any other nation in the world with natural beauty. There are so many places where God was just showing off here in the state of Utah. And at the same time, there are hundreds of thousands of acres where God got a little bored. And because he cares about us, at least I believe, underneath those places, he put incredible resources that would allow us to innovate, that would allow us to provide a living for our families, and that would allow us to educate our children. And I believe we're fools not to take advantage of that. Likewise, we're also fools if we don't protect those incredible natural vistas, those incredible natural beauties that we have in this state. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not all or nothing. And too often, because of the shrill voices on both sides, we tend to view it as such. And we're making a colossal mistake when we do that. We have a very unique opportunity with Congressman Bishop's plan. It's a singular opportunity, one we have never had in the past, and one, unfortunately, as our country becomes more polarized, I'm not sure we'll ever see again in the future. It's a little bit of a long shot. I recognize that. And there are voices on both sides of this issue that would tell us, no, we can't give an inch, because if we give an inch, we never get it back. I hear that all the time. But I also believe that if we continue to negotiate in good faith, and we have many counties in the state that are doing that, I believe we can find that balance that is so important, where we protect the places that need to be protected. And make no mistake, there are hundreds of thousands of acres of land in this state that need additional protection. Okay? At the same time, we can also free those resources that will allow us to continue to improve our economy in positive ways, that will allow us to educate our children, something that we have not done a good enough job of doing in the past. And again, will allow us to keep energy prices at a level that will be able to encourage additional innovation until that time when we will not be completely dependent on these natural resources. Now, I must also issue a word of warning to this group as we move through this process, and as the state takes a greater role in the management of these public resources. And that warning is this: whatever you do, please do not misinterpret our enthusiasm for energy development and for what it is that we're trying to accomplish here as an excuse to cut corners and not follow the rules. There is nothing that will derail the ability of the state to take care and manage these lands in a responsible way than a stupid energy company who is trying to cut corners to make an extra buck and does something that destroys the environment. We will protect the environment. That is important to the state of Utah. It is important to the citizens who will be here long after some of you are gone. And we will do that. We will defend the law to the T, and we will prosecute to the fullest extent. We're in this together. We have to be smart together. That's the only way we're going to accomplish this. At the same time, make no mistake that we can do this a lot better than the federal government. As a former county commissioner who lives in a county that is over 60% public lands, I can tell you firsthand of the destruction that has occurred by the very policies that the federal government has put in place to try to protect these lands. Just a quick example. The Manti LaSalle National Forest is turning into a wasteland because of beetle kill. We have a federal government that claims that they believe in science, and they're using science from the 1940s and 50s. They've learned nothing since that time to protect these lands. And at the same time, as our county was fighting one of the worst wildfires in the history of the state of Utah, the Wood Hollow fire, we were at the end of that fire in one of the worst fire seasons, again, in the history of our state. We had more air power at our disposal than we had ever had. And a fire started on the Manti LaSalle National Forest in Emery County, about 15 to 20 miles as the crow flies, or as a helicopter or airplane would fly. We were at the end of getting our fire out. We had the firefighting capabilities there. We get a call that there is a new lightning-caused fire on Sealy Canyon area, in the Huntington Canyon portion of Emery County. Our Type 2 firefighting team said, we will have all of our air support there in 10 minutes. The fire was at 2 acres. It would have taken 5 minutes for us to put that fire out. The Forest Service told us not to worry about it. $13 million later, that canyon might never recover. Because of the steepness of the canyon, we ruined a blue ribbon fishery, one of the most beautiful and scenic fisheries in the state of Utah. 3 years later, we continue to have landslides. Almost every month, the road is closed. The environmental damage that has occurred, the millions of pounds of pollutants that were put into the air, as well as the continued environmental impacts from the slides and the erosion. We don't know if we will ever recover. That is the type of management we're getting from the federal government. This is our state. We know it a lot better than 14 senators from the East Coast who believe that we need to create more national parks in this state. We will defend our rights to not be second-class citizens in this nation. We know what is best for our state. We live with it. We want to preserve it for our children and grandchildren, and we want to provide for their betterment today. Thank you for what you're doing to make that happen. Thank you for your support and the support of Governor Herbert in seeing this through. Please listen to what Congressman Bishop has to say today. This is an important opportunity for us, something we should not pass up. And God bless you in this great work. Thank you.